We've had some big policy announcements from Argentina and the promise of steps from Turkey. I highlighted the promise, both of those two things coming over the last 24 hours. The problem is, though, that these are and feel like sort of knee-jerk reactions to very difficult scenarios. Are they therefore going to have any effect in cooling these markets down?
Well, to start with Argentina, Guy, at the moment we just took a look at the bonds, and the bonds are climbing their dollar debt. But we need to really wait and see. Remember, yesterday was Labor Day in the US, so there was no test really of the Argentinian markets. We'll see that today. Today's going to be the moment of truth. Investors are generally positive on the statements, but the details still need to be seen, and whether that unlocks the IMF help. So we'll be watching that today. And then over in Turkey, of course, this was a long time coming. The central bank, after these dreadful CPI numbers, came out and said that they'll take all steps to shore up the lira. That's still a week away, so plenty of question marks as to what that will actually bring. Investors really don't know what's going to be unveiled and whether it will be sufficient. So again, as you just said, the lira fell yesterday actually after that news, and is also down slightly today.
In many ways, though, these are contained events. Very few traders have mandates to go anywhere near Argentina, as a result of which this is an incredibly thinly traded story. And in some ways, the Turkish authorities have made at least offshore trading of the Turkish lira incredibly difficult as well. They've squeezed out the story there. As a result of which, are they contained, or is there something else that could kind of leak out and get into the wider system?
Well, there are all sorts of idiosyncratic risks across emerging markets. There are plenty of dangers. In Brazil, you have the election uncertainty. There's sanctions in Russia, and in South Africa, you have this the land bill that's being discussed there. So lots of potential risks, and all of this, of course, is playing out against the backdrop of higher U.S. rates, and we're in the twilight of the easy money era. I mean, that said, though, you can't lump everyone in with Turkey and Argentina. They're extremes. So if you actually look at emerging markets generally, on average, their inflation rates are low, coming down, and current accounts are actually in surplus broadly for emerging markets.
You're in Moscow, so let me just kind of ask you a Russian-related question. When Vladimir Putin is not out on hilltops picking wild berries, do you think he's worried about this?
Well, I don't know if he's particularly worried about it when he's berry picking, but 2 weeks ago they did axe a debt auction, citing external turmoil. So of course, policymakers have their eyes on what's going on, and of course risk off around the world has an impact on Russian markets. But remember, Russia is certainly in a pretty healthy state. Its reserves, it's been building up its foreign currency reserves. Oil is at Brent is at 78 a barrel. That's very good for Russia. The big question mark, though, of course, is sanctions, the threat of sanctions. And as US lawmakers come back from summer recess, then the question is, do we hear more saber rattling about punishments coming up before the midterms in the US further down the line? That, of course, is what's keeping Russian markets lower. And in fact, one commentator yesterday was saying that were it not for sanctions, Russia would actually look like something of a haven market within emerging markets.